Well, hello everybody. This is Brother Todd with your Victory Minute, and I hope you boys and girls out there are having a good day. I'm gonna try to shield off some of this wind with this pickup truck here, and hopefully you'll be able to hear me all right. I've been needing to put out more of these minutes, and I keep forgetting to, and I was thinking about something's been going on in my little life, and I thought, well, maybe it'd help you a little bit. You ever felt like had those moments in life where I am in mosquitoes, I think maybe too many of them out here for me. You ever had those times in life where it seems like the faster you move or the more you're trying to get done, the less you get done, right? And you wouldn't mind the doing of something if you just felt like you could get anything to happen. Well, I've been dealing with things like that in lots of different areas for, it's been probably a pretty good 2 years. Not wheel spinning, but just lots of steps. And then the last few days, I've been in that dealing with some stuff. My goodness, if I could just get some traction at all, I'd sure be happy. And I thought about a verse that God always reminds me of a lot, and me and the Lord talk about it a lot. It's where the old Solomon said that a dream comes through many steps. And I've often told the Lord that, Lord, if you'd have told me how many steps were going to be involved in you giving me a vision, a plan, a hope, a desire in so many different areas of ministry and life, if you'd have told me how many steps I was actually going to have to take, I might crawfish that deal with you, Lord. I may not have stepped out like I ought to have and should have. And just the, how you put it, just the nuisance of the mundane, of the staying after it and going. It seems like sometimes the more you step, the slower things get. And just what is that all about? You know, what is it God's wanting us to learn? What is He's wanting us to see? What are the realities that we need to deal with in the things that are really good, things that really that we have a great desire in, things with our everything from our church and ministry, our life, our family. You know, raising kids is a everyday, never stop, going on thing. You know, Isaiah talked about they that wait on the Lord will renew their strength. You know, they mount up on wings of eagles. And that sounds great, right? And we know God will carry us over those moments of adversity and run and not get weary. And we're like, great, you know, I got an opportunity I can get to. But then walk and not faint. Just the mundane, everyday, get up, get after it, and go on. And why is it that seems like in life you got, it's like that? Well, let me give you three things the Lord kind of laid on my heart I've been kind of meditating on today. One is problems. We live in a sin-cursed world, and we got to expect that things are not going to be easy in a sin-cursed world. Every time I'm working on something, I can't get it fixed, and I'm hot and sweaty, I think, dadgummit, Adam, you know, the Lord said the ground's going to be cursed for your sake. It's going to bring forth thorns and thickets and all that kind of stuff, and you're going to bring a living in by the sweat of your brow. It's just the reality of a sin-cursed world, and especially if you're inclined to live a holy life and you want to live a holy life for the Lord, for the blessing of others and those kinds of things. Well, then there's just the constant attack of the system, the world system, and all those kinds of things that are just the reality of living on this planet. I was a little boy. I told Daddy one time, I said, I don't remember, I didn't want to do something. I said, Daddy, I'm tired. And he said, boy, the whole world's tired. Now get up, put your work clothes on, let's go. And the whole world's tired. And sometimes it sure feels that way, doesn't it? And, you know, we just have to be grown up enough and mature enough to realize that, you know, anything worth doing, anything that's going to have an eternal cause to it at all is always going to have some problems. You know, the Lord said, you watch out when all men speak well of you. And I'll tell you something else goes along with it. You watch out when everything's going smooth, everything's going easy. When the world ain't bucking against you a little bit, you might ought to look at which way you're going. Because if you're walking with the ways of the world, you won't get buffeted by those winds very often. But when you're walking with the Lord, everything in the world's gonna be, you're gonna be dealing with it. Not that there's not a power in it, not that God ain't got a plan in it. Okay, that's the second thing. That plan, the process. When God gives us something big, he whether it's raising kids for eternal purpose, a lifelong marriage, building a business, being part of a ministry, just wherever you are, what's kind of fitting you, and that reality is that if God's got you on something that's big and something that's good, you ain't gonna get it done in a day anyway. It's too big. It's too big. It has to be taken in steps. It has to be taken in steps, and it can be done, and it will be done, and it'll be appreciated, and it'll be of worth, but it's not something you can just get done. I like to do work on things out with my hands and that kind of thing that I can do now. I tend to be real bad about contending with and dealing with a situation if it's going to take a long time. My middle brother is a lieutenant in Dallas Fire Department, but he didn't go straight to work there. He was a welder first, and a good one, big heavy iron welder. They built overhead cranes and things like that, and so building fence and stuff like that's really kind of simple stuff for him. And he used to would do that some, as a fireman on his days off and this and that. And I asked him one day, I said, "Bud, what you doing with your fence building?" He said, "Todd," he said, "I'm only taking jobs I can do in 2 days." He said, "If I can do it in 2 days, I'll do it." Now, don't even call him about building a fence now if you know him, or if you're talking about it, because he ain't going to do it. And he's too busy catching big catfish nowadays. We older now. But you got to prioritize yourself. But anyhow, he said, "Man, if I can get it done," he said, "but I just that long process." And that's fine for fence building or old man jacking around out in the hayfield and that kind of stuff. But when it really comes down to doing the things that matter, guys, they're bigger. God's give you a bigger vision than what can just happen sometime in a few days, or really as you think about parenting, as you think about your family. It's not just something you can do in a year. It's not just, we're going to have an intentional summer, and we should, and we need to have something we're doing every day, because that's how life is lived. It's every day, but it is going to be process. It's going to, if it's big, you don't build families, you don't build nations, you don't build societies, you don't change culture in a moment. Like I tell people all the time, we used to have them old revival meetings, and if all the revival meeting is you meet for a week and a few extra people get saved, which praise God, that's a good thing, and the singing in the church gets better for a couple of weeks, that's not changing culture. That's not changing culture. It is process. It is hammering it out. It is living generationally. Okay. And so some things you just got to recognize, the things God has you a part of, they're not just bigger than a few days, guys. They're bigger than a life. They're bigger than a generation. In fact, some of you older folks, think with me here how important it is for us to be laying up and putting forward. I'm always challenging the church to do this. Like with our school right now, it's like planting an oak tree. We're not planting it for us to sit under the shade of it. We're planting it for the future generations that can. Think of, I know I'm getting preachy here now, but listen to me. Think of how many times in the scriptures God would bring two. He doesn't do anything through one life. David was a great king, but he used Solomon to build the temple, right? I mean, even Jesus had his disciples, and the Lord sure did need them. For a Moses, there's a Joshua. For an Elijah, there's an Elisha. Almost flipped their names around, right? And the second becomes greater. In fact, even with Christ, he said, "You're going to do things that I didn't even do. You're going to do things that I didn't do." Right? That's his plan for us, is to expand, right? So some of the things we're doing in life are bigger. Even like in my life, my family, I live on things my grandpa and them built, my mom built, right? Things are built into my kids that are beyond what was going on in theirs, and it's being built into the next generation, right? But it's a part, and we got to recognize we're a part, because you got to be a part of something bigger. Got to be a part of something bigger. You're never going to feel satisfied in life. You're never going to feel satisfied in life. You got to be a part of something bigger than yourself, and that is not going to happen in a day. Okay? Have a far-flung view. I kind of lift up my eyes on this deal. I look up over that hill I'm looking at, right? You got to get your eyes up and look at what God's doing. Get you a big picture for your family, for yourself, for your business, for your church, for your ministry, right? For our society, for our culture. What are we going to do today? It's going to change things. God knows it's going to have to change. We're going to fall apart. And then the last thing, guys, is there's a power, okay? We got to deal with problems. We got to recognize the process and the plan. But the reality is, one of the reasons I think God lets us go through these constant days is so that sooner or later we start living our Christian life not in our own power, but in His power. If you think about where I was quoting there from Isaiah 40, right? He said, "They that wait upon the Lord," right? But what does it say before that? It says, "Even the young men's strengths will fail." Could it be that one of the reasons God allows us to deal with the process of the everyday is so that we realize that no matter how strong we are, how smart we are, what resources we have, sooner at the end of the day, we realize the circumstance is bigger than we are. Friend of mine, dear friend of mine, is Haitian, one of the most powerful pastors on the planet right now, okay? Francois Norcilius. And we were there, and he tells everybody, you know, you come because there's such great need. We used to could go then. Right now it's too hectic. But we would go, and we'd always tell the team, because everybody's heart would be broken and they'd be trying to give money to people. And I'd always tell them, guys, let's get there, and everything you want to give, we'll get it to Brother Francois, and we'll get it going in the most positive way, and in the most beneficial way. So your money's well spent, not just because people will lie to you and different things. And one of the things he teaches us is realize we can empty all your pockets and there's still going to be need here. Obviously, we do what we can, but the reality is it is way bigger than us. As Americans, we're so wealthy, we think, well, we can give some money to it, whatever, throw money at it and it'll fix it. But the reality is the big things in life are far beyond the resources that we have. And sooner or later, in living this Christian life, you come to a point where you go, you know what, Lord, I got to have your strength to do this. And He goes, And that's where the filling of the Spirit comes through. If God hadn't carried me all these years, boys and girls, that sun's kind of changing me here. I'm going to move this thing a little bit. If I hadn't had the Lord's strength carrying me all this time, I'd have quit a long time ago. And if I hadn't have quit, I'd have surely burned out, mental breakdown or something. You come to a point where I don't know how many times I've been so dog tired, couldn't get up and preach for an hour or better. My mind worked clearly. It's just God's anointing, God's help. God's going to carry you. God's going to fill you. God's going to take care of you. I got the butterflies landing on me. Y'all see them? Huh? I was a kid. I loved chasing butterflies. I'm going to let him sit there a while. Use him as a boutonniere. And, but you'll recognize that it all, anything that really matters ultimately has to be done by the power of the Lord working in us. And that's where we see His promises kept to us. And it's what fills us. It's what keeps us from being drained. I used to be amazed when I was a young pastor at the strength and the charisma that old brethren, some of them had. Never got old. Bodies got old, but their spirits, their minds never ever got old. Right? That's from that filling. That's that person that has a joy it's unspeakable, it's full of glory, that has bone cancer so bad that if they reach up and grab a glass of water, it'll break their hand. And I've seen it too many times. I've just seen God's power at work in too many situations, and they're going to be at work in all of ours. And God's not forgotten you, and it's a tough world full of problems. And if God's given you anything worth doing, it's going to be big. It could take a while. Okay. It could go far beyond your own generation. And then lastly, realize that in the everyday, guys, God has given a power. They that wait on the Lord talks about that they that renew their strength. That word renewal, I've said this on here before. That word renewal talks about, it's like two ships meeting. It's like a supply ship meeting a ship that's empty, out of supply. And they meet out in the middle of nowhere, and the supplies are given over. And the great thing is, the Lord never runs out of supply, but He only gives us what we need for the moment that we're in. It's like manna coming from on high. Manna came every day. You can't store up, and God will give you the grace you need for where you're at. He won't give you grace for where you're not. That's where you'll get afraid of dying and things like that. It's one thing to be dying and be dealing with it. It's another thing you ain't dying and you're afraid of it, right? You don't have grace for that yet. God hadn't given you the grace for that yet. But God will be faithful. Just think about those three things. I got to deal with it because I'm going to have problems. And God's working a plan here. It's bigger than us. And He wants us to be a part, and he will enable us to be a part of it, okay? Well, I feel like I'm squinting so bad y'all probably can't see my eyes. Oh, sun is just a getting me. I should have brought my hat out here. But anyhow, I hope y'all have a good day. Think about these things, and try to be at church this week if you can, okay? Be sure and like and subscribe and all those kind of things. Ring bells and send those notices. I can tell it's funny. Some of y'all will catch a Old Victory Minute, and you'll repost it or you'll like it, and it'll hit your list, and we'll get another 200 views out of one of these minutes just in one day, just out of nowhere, something that's been out there 3 or 4 months. Because if you send it to somebody, then they're going to think there's value in it, and they'll do it. If not, it's just, here's Brother Todd with another minute. But anyway, y'all have a good day, and I pray that God will bless you and keep you in all things. Bye-bye.